shooting brake. It sounds like such a pretentious term, doesn't it? Oh, I'm just going down to my holiday house in the Southern Highlands for the weekend because Cassandra has weekend leave from Frencham. No, to most people, this is a wagon, and it's one of the best, the Volkswagen Arteon R-Line. After a couple of years off, the Arteon is back in the Australian market, and it's had a minor facelift which has only improved its already good looks. This low-riding, sleek design is one of the best looking wagons on the market. In fact, I think it has more character than its premium cousin, the Audi A5. The front is immediately eye-catching with this big wraparound grille and the IQ Light LED matrix headlights that are actually controlled by a camera here at the front and can be dimmed individually so as not to startle oncoming drivers. There's also this nice little LED strip here at the front that joins together just underneath the front emblem. The Arteon looks great from just about any angle, but side on we get this nice little R badge here, and you can see how low and sleek this car really is. It has a similar sort of shape to the late Holden Commodore. Rest in peace. But check out these wheels. I could look at these all day long and not get bored. They look a little bit like a James Bond gun barrel logo. They're 20 inches and they ride on some thin rubber, but it's not too much of a harsh ride. The back of the Arteon tapers off down nice and low to these tail light clusters, which look really, really good. They've got sequential turn indicators, and the quad exhausts down the bottom there just look mean. Underneath the VW badge, we open up the powered tailgate and see a 563 litre storage space with a nice flat floor, a full-size spare tyre underneath that. Knock down the back seats, you get an extra 1,000 litres of space. 2 litres and 4 cylinders. It's the same for just about every car I'm reviewing these days, but this one has a turbocharger and outputs 206 kilowatts of power and 400 newton meters of torque. It'll shoot you to 100 k's per hour in about 5.5 seconds, has a 7-speed automatic gearbox and drives its power to all 4 wheels. And it also has a 2.2 tonne braked towing capacity. So with that, its sizable boot and incredible good looks, do you really need an SUV? Inside is probably the best interior Volkswagen have done. Normally VW interiors can look a bit sparse and utilitarian, but it's certainly not the case here, with a very stylish cockpit with a nice mix of soft touch materials and metal and only a few scratchy plastics. It looks really good. The center console screen is 9.2 inches. It's not the biggest, but it's big enough. It runs the latest Volkswagen software, which is okay. It's not as good as Audi. It still relies a lot on menus rather than icons, but it does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, plus the Harman Kardon sound system is one of the best. One small gripe though is with the image from the reversing camera. It's just a bit low res and not very good. I love the climate controls. They're all touch sensitive and you can just slide your finger along here to adjust the fan speed or temperature. There's 3 zones of climate control, 2 for the front and 1 on the back. A nice little sliding door here with a compartment to keep your phone in, which I think under normal circumstances would have wireless charging, but unfortunately there is none in this car, and I don't know if that's a COVID thing. A number of car makers have actually deleted that option in recent times because of COVID, but unfortunately you will need a USB cable to charge your phone, and you won't find one up the front here. The nearest one is, well, there's 2 of them here in the center console bin, 2 USB-C outlets. The other little problem with this is that it can be a bit tricky to get your phone in and out of it when the car is in park. It's just, there's not a lot of room. The rest of the center console is pretty straightforward. We've got controls here for the automatic parking feature, which we might try out later on. A little sliding door here to reveal a couple of good-sized cup holders. Automatic park brake, a little compartment here to keep your coins in if you're paying a toll, which you don't pay tolls with coins anymore. Maybe you could just sort of throw them to the air. No, that would be dangerous. A 12-volt outlet, those 2 USB-Cs I mentioned before, and a small little compartment here underneath the armrest. Up front there is a head-up display, but unlike just about every other car, it's not on the windshield. It's on a separate piece of glass that slides up from the dashboard. I don't know why they've done that, but it works okay. It doesn't work with polarized sunglasses, unfortunately. The steering wheel has a really nice sporty feel to it. It's leather wrapped with a flat bottom and an R badge on there, and the controls are all touch sensitive, just like they are for the climate controls. And unlike a lot of Volkswagen Group cars, this car doesn't have a separate stalk for cruise control. They're actually incorporated here into the steering wheel, which actually makes them a little bit easier to use. The instrument cluster is fully digital, and it's very similar to one that you would find in an Audi. So there's a few different dial configurations you can choose between, or you can have full screen maps. It's entirely up to you. It really is one of the best on the road. The seats are Napa leather racing buckets. They're really comfortable. There's heating, but unfortunately no ventilation. We get full electric adjustment, and the seating position is nice and low in the cabin, so it feels sporty with good visibility out the front. The rear window is really small, so there's not a lot to see out there from the rear vision mirror, and the wing mirrors are quite small as well. Another one of my favourite features of the Arteon, frameless glass windows on all 4 doors. Really nice little touch. Well, plenty of room here in the back seat. I'm 190 centimetres tall behind my own seating position, nowhere near the seat in front of me. I've got loads of knee room, plenty of toe room too, more of this nice Napa leather, a separate zone of climate control for rear seat passengers. Only one USB output though, unfortunately, and it's a USB-C, so your kids might need to fight over that. In terms of having 3 adults back here, it might be a little bit tight. You wouldn't want to do it for more than about half an hour or so, but 3 kids would be just fine. Center armrest with a couple of cup holders. So with the darkened glass, it is fairly gloomy back here, I do have to say. There is an option for a sunroof available in the Arteon, but this particular car doesn't have it, so it is a bit dark back here, but still very comfortable. I have to say, at low RPMs, this engine just does sound faintly like an old Volkswagen Beetle. It's like that lineage has continued on through. Being all-wheel drive in this wet weather that we're having at the moment, I feel supremely comfortable driving this car. It just feels so glued to the road. No wheel spin, never feels like it's going to get out of control. And the steering has such a good feel to it too. It's got a nice weight to it, at least in sport mode. There are a few different drive modes, and you can even customize your own by selecting whether you want the steering in sport or normal. Same with the acceleration, how hard you want the air conditioning to be able to work, which of course affects fuel efficiency. This car's sporty performance with its thin rubber on the wheels does give it a little bit of a firmer ride than you'd find in some SUVs. I do have to say, having spent a few days with the Arteon R-Line now, I totally get the sporty wagon thing. I always thought, why would you want a wagon? You know, a sedan seems like a better option. Nah. I think this is the first wagon I've fallen in love with. Okay, let's check out the adaptive cruise control. If I can figure out how to turn it on. There's a few button pushes here on the steering wheel. I do have to say, Volkswagen Group cars are not renowned for having the world's easiest cruise control systems to use. Travel assist selected. Oh, there we go. Okay. So yeah, it works well once you figure out how to use it. Okay, 0 to 100 in the Volkswagen Arteon R-Line is officially 5.5 seconds. So let's see how that feels. Oh, that's good. It's not super fast at takeoff, but it certainly picks up pretty quickly. And the engine noise, it just sounds great. You can actually adjust the amount of exhaust noise that it makes in the individual drive mode menu, but I like it loud. The ride isn't maybe quite as refined as you'd get in an Audi, and the cabin is just a little bit noisier than that. You can actually tell that the windows are all double glazed. You especially notice that when you close the door, because you can quite clearly see without the door frames how there's been 2 pieces of glass sandwiched together. So it's a reasonably quiet cabin interior, not the quietest. So the Arteon has parking assist, where it will guide itself into a parking spot for you. So let's just try that out and see how it goes. Okay, it's found a spot, put it into reverse. Here we go. So far, so good. These systems do make me a bit nervous, I have to say. Okay, put it into drive, close the gap to the car in front. That was pretty good. I do have to say the car feels like it's at a little bit of an angle with the nose pointing inwards a little bit and its arse sort of sticking out. But it's better than the system I used in a Nissan once, which scraped the wheels along the edge of the curb. That was not ideal. So Volkswagen, pretty good. So unless you're going off-road, and frankly many SUVs in the city never do, there's really no reason not to think about an Arteon wagon because it looks really good, the performance is amazing, there's more than enough room to carry 5 people in comfort, plus all your stuff in the back with heaps of room in the boot. What's not to like? Well, if you couldn't tell already, I really like this car. It looks good, it's fantastic fun to drive, and it's practical too. I'd love to see what an electric version of this car would be like. But if you're thinking of dropping 80 grand or so on a mid-size SUV just to keep up with the Joneses, then I urge you to stop right now, go to your local VW dealership and take an Arteon R-Line for a spin because you just might change your mind.